In this video, I'm going to show how I transported corals from Montreal back home as carry-on luggage. Unfortunately, I had mixed success, which I'll get into shortly. This is the view from my hotel room. It was quite nice. Montreal's a great city. Unfortunately, it was still pretty cold. I kept the corals overnight in the ice bucket with a bag of warm water on top. This was just to insulate them a little bit. It's not like the hotel room was especially cold, but I just tried to keep them warm anyways. Given the circumstances, I didn't buy anything too crazy. Zoanthid frag. Frag that was sold to me as Montipora, but I'm convinced it's actually Cyphastria, as well as a couple of acros. This is how I prepared the corals for transport. I simply laid out some paper towel in the bathroom sink, poured out the water from the bags, and removed the coral, wrapping them in the wet paper towel, and then placing them in a Ziploc bag. Here you'll note I'm smelling the coral, as my wife made a comment that it smelled. I think she was more referring to the regular oceany kind of smell, but when I did smell it, it did smell a little off. In the old days, when I used to line up for coral shipments and corals would be sold the morning after they arrived from overseas, it was very common for people to smell the corals before they bought them to give you a better idea if they were going to live or not. Back then, corals really wouldn't stay in the shops long. They'd be gone as soon as the doors opened. Some actually say that transporting corals dry or damp is actually better than transporting them in these little bags, particularly for acros, as they tend to slime in the water, and that's actually what kills them, not being in a small amount of water. I have done this in the past and I didn't experience any losses, although it was a little bit more ideal circumstances. This wasn't a complete disaster, but it certainly could have gone better. If I were to do this again, I probably would have wrapped them about 12 hours earlier and got them out of the bags quicker. It's hard to say what the actual problem was, but a lot of it has to do with the actual coral selection. This piece here in the big bag was a maricultured colony. It had been discounted twice and was in a tank with a lot of SPS on their way out. I did inspect it and there were no signs of tissue damage when I got it. But given that all the other corals in the tank, well, not all of them, but a lot of the other corals in the tank were not doing well, that was probably an indicator of things to come. Here you can see I splashed some water in the hotel bathroom. Don't worry, the outlets are GFCI, and I did clean up before I left. This one is just a little zoo frag, and I'm sure people have left those out while they're fragging, forgotten about them, threw them in the water hours later, and realized they were fine. This one probably would have survived just like that. Getting back to the maricultured piece, that was just a poor selection and I really shouldn't have bought it. Of course, it looked good in the store and the price was right, so that's how I ended up with it. I'm already noticing some tissue damage. And this one had a definite smell of sickness or death on it. But in case some of it survived, I figured I might as well wrap it. And at the worst, maybe at the least, I'd get a little frag. Unfortunately, this piece was completely gone when I got home. Here's a 3-second look at the tank. Unfortunately, I didn't film very much of that at the actual store. So all in all, I bought 4 corals and 2 survived. 50% survival ratio is not great, but When you're dealing with iffy SPS, a lot of times they will die regardless, unfortunately. I mentioned how in the old days you would smell corals. Those days are pretty much gone, and now you find much healthier specimens in store. Still, this is not a bad way to transport coral. The biggest thing was I bought too early, but this was not a trip to buy coral. I just happened to be in Montreal and decided to check out a reef shop. If you want to try this, it's pretty straightforward. I don't anticipate any problems at any airport with this, since you're not breaking any rules. This was domestic travel and I didn't have over 100 ml of liquid. I didn't film when I got home as I wasn't really feeling too great, but I simply floated them in my frag tank for 15 or 20 minutes and then I placed them in the frag tank. Since I'm editing this video so late, they actually spent about 2 weeks in the frag tank in quarantine, and they're now in the display as seen here. This zooanthid frag and the mystery frag are the two that survived. The one that I thought was Montipora, I blasted with light in the frag tank and it didn't really respond well, but since I put it in the display tank, it's really looking blue again. I'm pretty sure it's Cyphrastria, but I don't really know. Anyways, thanks for watching and happy reefing.